guys, so today we're going to be talking about back braces and about the framework for the wings. They're pretty simple to put together. The main thing I just want to go over is how to make a back brace and basically what changes to the frame result in changes in position of the wing. First off, the way I do my back braces is I get them laser cut out of this aluminum sheet, and I'm going to be taking this apart in a minute. I order multiple at a time, and I order off of a big 40 by 40, 4 foot by 4 foot aluminum sheet, and the thickness kind of depends a little bit on what size wings I'm doing. A 16-foot wingspan needs more support, so I might do 0.1 aluminum, but usually I do 0.08 is fine for the 6, 8, and 10 foots for sure. If you want to be on the safe side, anything above 12 feet, you probably want to do 0.09 or 0.1 aluminum. I do 50-52 because 60-62 is it, or 60-52 is brittle when bent, and the 50-52 you can manipulate more. The downside to that is it will bend a little easier, but when you bend it to contour to your back, you're not going to get any cracks, and you're not going to get any of the weakness you get with the other. So the way I get these back braces done is I created a file, a vector file, to send to the laser cutter. I don't have a laser cutter capable of going through aluminum. They're freaking expensive, and if you get multiple done, it gets less expensive. But my guys, for example, if I want to just cut one, because of the setup fees and all the stuff that goes into it, it's I think like $40 for a back brace. And then for the large sheet of aluminum, it's $40. You can probably just get a smaller sheet of aluminum that's just thick enough for your piece, which, you know, will be 10, 20 bucks. So in the end, even if you only cut your own, you can expect to spend a good 60 bucks probably. And I don't know, maybe prices are different in your area, but getting somebody else to laser cut your file is definitely the way to go, because unless you have, like, I don't know, $500,000 sitting around, you're not going to be able to afford your own laser cutter. So the way the back braces are designed is I have 2 plates so that it can be cut out of the sheet metal. We don't have to form it, we don't have to like have some complicated chest piece, and although that makes them fit better under clothing and stuff like that, it's very expensive to do and very time consuming, whereas this, now that I have the back braces set on my computer, I can just send them a file and say, print this for me, and give them aluminum, and then they just print. And so when you get it from the laser cutter, the edges are very, very sharp. I don't think you can see this, and I'm not going to cut my finger for demonstration purposes, but they're sharp. Not as sharp as you would get if you did a hydro cutter, which is another option, actually. If you don't have a laser cutter in your area, there probably is a hydro cutter. Water jet. If you search your area for water jet cutting, you'll probably find that and a laser place, like my place does both. So the nice thing about having the sheet design is that you can, it's really cheap materials, it's really easy to do, and then you can contour it afterwards. And now this is my first time doing 0.01 because I wanted to get some bigger braces, or rather for bigger wings, but the first thing you're going to do is decide which one is going to be going towards your back and which side is going to be the side that faces out. Normally it won't matter In this case, my aluminum is very scratched on one side, which is not a bad thing so long as it's not both sides, because I actually kind of rough up one side to put the padding on the back, and I just glue it. And so that I definitely want to be the side with the padding, which is the side that goes to the body. And the side that goes to the body, you have like a little bit of sway in your back, and so you want to contour this so that it dips back and contours with your back. You don't want to contour the top because you want to have a flat plate to attach to the wings. And if you don't, oh, don't tell me. Oh, it's just telling me I'm out of battery. Well, I'll try and get as much done as I can. So you want to make sure that that stays flat, otherwise you're going to get a bend, and then your spacing isn't going to be right, and it's going to have it's bad. So for the most part, you want to keep this completely flat. If you want to contour to your back and then just do the standoff so that your plate that stands off of the back brace that holds the wing is flat, but the back brace isn't for some reason, you can do that. It just becomes 1,000 times more complicated. So this scratch side I want towards my back, which means that the curve needs to go this way, and you want to do an initial bend right below your bottom bolt hole here, and let me think. Let's go this way. So for the first bend, it's pretty sharp because that starts that sway back angle. You go the opposite direction, and I use the edge of the table, don't slip, to bend. You can use, if you have a good vise or something, you could do that. You could use a hammer then, and so your first initial bend is going to look like that. And then, this one's kind of small, but I just use my leg and bend the opposite way. I'm going to have to go back and reassert that edge just a little more. Yeah, and so now you got a little bit of a contour, and that can fit along your back a little bit better, and that way you don't have like this big plate that looks on the back. So yeah, that's how you contour this, and then next we're going to put the standoffs on. Okay, so the next step in this process, you're going to need a couple of things. What we're going to be doing is placing these standoffs so that their plate that holds the wings is set off of your back. And the reason you want this, like theoretically you could just do this plate and then punch a hole where you want the pivot to be and then pivot it off of that point. The problem is then you have this rotating piece of metal at your back. For one, it could bind on your clothes, it could hurt you, and it brings the wings like super close to you and they can hit you. Like there's just a lot of problems solved just by putting a little standoff. And so what we're gonna do to get these plates that hold the wings off of your back just a little bit is we are going to be using 1 inch pan head, 1 inch pan head machine screws, and these are the 1/4 inch as well. And then same lock nuts we've been using, just get a box. And then I use, you can use the threaded aluminum ones. I just use nylon standoffs, or spacers. They work really, really well. Just make sure that you get the ones that are the thicker outer diameter, because if you get the one, there's some that are like really, really thin, and those ones, you know, the more material there is, the more weight you can put on them. The nylon, these big nylon guys, the 1/2 inchers, I haven't seen in that thinner stuff, but just in case. These are what I get. And then if you're going through McMaster, I don't know if I have it posted yet, but I will post both the nylon and the aluminum spacers. The reason I stopped using the aluminum spacers, which I think are probably your better option, is I get a lot of my stuff from Ace, like at the last minute if I run out of one or two things. And the thread theoretically is the same on Ace's panhead screws and McMaster's, or so they say, but like the thread would jam on half of the, if I got the screws from Ace or the bolts from Ace, and then I got the spacers, the aluminum spacers from McMaster, then like I would go to thread it and it would thread until I got halfway through the spacer, and then it would jam, or it wouldn't necessarily jam to the point where I couldn't twist it on. It just became really, really, really difficult, and so like my hands were getting super tired of doing all that. So now these ones just slip on, which comes with their own little annoyances, but at least they get on there. So that's what we're going to do now. So yeah, let's get to it. What you're gonna need a Phillips head screwdriver and your 7/16 inch, either a socket wrench or a regular wrench works good. Okay, so what we're doing, making sure these line up. Good. And then on the part that faces your back, which is the swoop goes in, which back goes in, you're going to put your panhead bolts or screws, whatever you want to call them, and you're going to hold them with your hand so that you can then put on your standoffs and slip them on like so, and then place the nuts on. And from here it gets a little bit easier. It's just getting those first couple on can be a pain in the butt because you're trying to manipulate several things at once. So now you can go one at a time, making sure to slip the standoff underneath each. If you're getting nylon standoffs, I definitely recommend going through McMaster because they are much cheaper through McMaster than they are through, say, Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware does a pretty good job considering they have a storefront and everything. You don't have to deal with shipping charges, all that nonsense, but, and if you're doing smaller quantities, I guess it's fine, but for me, like, with the larger quantities that I get, it sort of starts getting to be a pain in the butt. Because you gotta slip this underneath and then get this through it. And that's kind of why the nylon ones that, or not the nylon ones, the aluminum works really nicely because you screw those on, and it holds the bolt up, and then you could just place this panel on top. The downside is it's like the opposite direction of when you tighten down this, so you have to like counter screw the other direction to make sure that that stays tight, because if that loosens, it's on the threading, so it'll loosen and it'll push up, and so there'll be like wobble in this plate, which you really don't want. So that's, you know, pros and cons to each type of standoff. Okay, so now we have the plates on, but as you can tell, we just hand tighten them, so they're a little bit wobbly. So what we do is just tighten them down. Easiest way, hold the nut on the one side and then tighten down the bolt from the back. So now that we've tightened everything down, you can see there's this nice 1/2 inch space between your back and where the bolt's gonna sit, which is right in here. Okay, I don't. Like that, and that way it's not touching your back, and it gives you a little space. You might even find, because they are like really close to you, when you move your arms, you may find that you even want a larger standoff, and you can do whatever you want. Other thing to consider is like sizing. So this is sized for most women, and you can see it's a pretty thin, like, back brace because women have tiny waists and stuff. So you don't want something too thin because then you're got a lot of torque kind of going this way with the wings when they're open. They have quite a bit of sway, so you don't, like, if you make it too wide, it's gonna show like on your side, but if you make it too thin, then it's gonna, whenever the wings move, it's gonna like press into your back because it doesn't have enough space. So the best thing to do, I find, is to measure between the shoulder blades, and that's kind of where I put the bolts, is like right at the shoulder blade area, and then I only go, it's not even an inch past here, I think. Maybe it isn't exactly an inch. But it's like an inch past that point, and you know, you've got more than an inch between, or past your shoulder blades. So that should be plenty. And on the bigger wings, you might want to give yourself a little more space. Like if you have huge wings, try and fit your back brace so that it has as much support as possible. But for anything like, anything 12 and under, this is more than sufficient. 14 and 16, probably it'd be fine, especially if you're not wearing it for long periods of time. But then, you know, if you are, you may want to just go bigger just for comfort's sake. It's doable, I've done it, but you know, I'm hardcore. The other thing we need to address is how sharp this still is. It's not, it will cut you if you're trying hard enough. I've done it, and I've sliced my finger on it. And so all we need to do now is go over it with some steel wool to kind of soften up the edges, and then we can get to priming and padding the back. Thing that we're going to do with the aluminum back brace, right now it's just a piece of metal, and that's not terribly comfortable. Also, unless your wings are silver, you're probably going to want to paint these base pieces. The only part that's going to show, because we're going to cover this in fabric, but the part that's not going to be covered in fabric are going to be these pieces right here, the standoff pieces. Those are going to come out of the fabric so that it has a clear pivot point and flat pivot point for the back brace. And admittedly, this paint may get a little worn, especially just like right next to where the wings are pivoting, but just in that angle, and that'll be covered up by the wing itself, but like the edges will show and stuff, and so you want them to be painted the color of the base of your wing. So I mean, like if they start white and then black, this is probably going to be black, but that all is up to you. The other thing to consider is this is going to be covered by fabric. This, like you can paint the whole back brace, you know, black or whatever, and then cover it with white if your costume is white and your rings are black. I don't know. But so this, the paint that you use, you're going to want to match to the wing. The fabric that you use to cover this, you're going to want to be the color of your costume. Now, if you're using a corset brace like I like to, then you're not going to need to worry as much about it. You might even want to make it like skin tone, so it looks like if it does peek out and like your skin is peeking out or whatever, then it just looks like more skin. But especially if you're putting them on and taking them off a lot and you want to just use straps, this is going to, you want this to be the same color as your costume, because that way, like it's not going to conform to your back perfectly, but it's going to be pretty close, and it'll help give the illusion that this is a part of your costume. So, foist things foist. Aluminum, just painting aluminum, it chips really easily, and that unless you rough this up a lot, isn't going to change. If you're cool and have like a sand blaster to kind of rough everything up, that would work great. You should do that. I don't, so I rough it up a little bit with the sandpaper, but the best thing for me is to use like a self-etching primer. You can get it at Home Depot or whatever. It helps, it's meant to cling to metals and Bondo and things that aren't necessarily super sticky or rough. So that'll, and they etch, so that'll help you create a rougher surface for the paint to adhere to, and everything just sticks on a little bit better. You're only going to do this on the back side. The other side we're going to glue and put foam. We'll do that once this dries. Okay, so now that we have this primered, this is going to be on an owl set. So I'm going to go ahead and make this nude. The back brace also needs to be nude because the person will be bare back. So we don't want this to show as much as possible, so we're going to make it kind of a skin tone. Next bit, still a touch tacky, but we'll be careful. The next thing you're going to do is using a contact adhesive. You're going to glue on some of this, I think this is 1/2 inch, ish, of the green upholstery foam. And this is going to go on the back, so that this is comfortable and not just a piece of sharp metal on your back. And with contact adhesive, you have to spray both pieces and kind of let them dry a little bit and then stick them together. So that's what we're going to do. You can either get like the contact cement brand or number 90 contact adhesive, like the 3M works just as well, and I think it's cheaper. So yeah, and you are going to want to rough up your surface for this as well. Pretty much your aluminum should be roughed up on both sides. Okay, we're going to give it a few minutes and then come back and put them together. So a lot of this you can see is kind of hurry up and wait. I am now going to put these two together, and then we're going to wait for them to dry a little more. You're supposed to wait till they're just tacky. And these dry pretty quickly, so I end up putting it on the frame pretty soon after spraying it, but then I let it dry even more after that is done. And you're not gonna want to cut it or do anything with it until it's fully dry, because it will pee. I mean, contact cement is pretty well on there the second you put them together. It has contact cement, but if I wait too long, it seems like the one side dries out too much, while the other side is still very wet. Well, not wet, but like tacky. So I wait till this side is tacky and still just a little bit damp. and then I stick them together, but this side, the side with the aluminum, usually has not fully gone tacky yet, so it's kind of like, well, now we gotta wait for it to really dry. If you wait longer than that, it seems to me that the other side goes completely dry and the contact cement doesn't work that well at all. So, anyway, now I'm gonna wait for it to just dry a little bit better, and then we'll come and cut off the excess. Okay, so now that you have the glue, it's holding on pretty good. Admittedly, you can peel this off if you don't like it, or if, I don't know why, if it didn't sit right or whatever, you can peel it off pretty easily, but relatively easily. But clearly you don't want to do that, you want to hold it on, so that's why we put the fabric cover over, is to help keep it on. But your next step is going to be, once you get it seated the way you want, is just going to be to go along the edge and cut off the excess. And keep in mind, we will be covering this with fabric, so and you may even want to put a little extra padding on the edge, just because then it'll, well, let me show you. It's all personal preference. I don't, to keep it as sleek as possible, and I consider it pretty dang comfortable because I've gone through every iteration of these where it's not, but if you want it more comfortable, leave a little bit of an edge, and what that'll do is kind of wrap around the whole side of it, rather than leaving a metal edge for you to grab onto even when you're carrying it and stuff. And that'll help just make it a little more comfortable if that's what you want. I go for sleek, and cosplay is pain. Deal with it. You're also going to want to cut out this middle portion that is extra. The way I do that is just with a razor blade. Ooh, apparently this one needs to be new. Let's see. It doesn't want to snap. No, fine. Just do that. And now you have a super squishy back brace. Let's see, now what you need to do is, obviously the bolt's got to come through somewhere, and you can actually feel where those holes are. So again, with your razor, just scoop, I just cut a little cross for them to go through. This actually helps when you're putting these together, helps keep the bolt in, the bolt and the washer inside the frame, they won't just pop out or whatever. So, miniature bonus. Unexpected, but nice. Okay. And then you're gonna wanna go, all of these slits are for straps, if you're gonna be wearing straps, although you're gonna want to put straps on regardless. For when, even if you have a corset brace, unless you're super ninja about it, I have to put the straps on and then put the straps on and then put on the corset and tighten the corset, and then I take the straps off and tuck them. It makes it easier to put them on. God, this thing is so dull. You should use a sharp one. I don't know where mine is. See, and then, oh, see, and then that happens. Bummer. I'll have to re-glue it. No biggie. You just gotta, instead of using the spray glue, which is super easy, go back and use the paint on stuff, which is gross. Oh well. Okay, so now all of our slits are there, so when you go to put in your straps, you have a little access port. And now we're going to sew the cover, and we're going to make the straps. Hi guys, so next we're going to make our back brace cover. This is from the swimsuit fabric section.
It's a spandex material. You want to make sure that you don't get a regular knit, because when we're relying on the fabric itself to maintain nice clean edging without us creating, sewing down the edges and creating a hem, we are just going to be cutting this and then wrapping it and putting it over and just sewing up at the top. So if you get a knit, it's going to fray. That's not good. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold your fabric in half and try and get it as flat as possible. And then we're going to, it is a stretch fabric, so you don't need to give it a lot of extra space. In fact, I don't give it really much space at all. Okay. And what I do is don't cut it off at the bottom or anything. You're going to keep going. And the reason I do this is we are going to create strips for the base. The way we do that is we're going to go to here. I'm just going to create a little snip to know where the corners are. And you can, there's a number of ways to make this neater and cleaner. If you would like to, you can leave little tabs down here for Velcro, but that's not necessary if you want to. I'm going to just show you how to make a basic cover that'll get the job done. It'll look pretty nice regardless, but minimal work involved. And I do this on most of my... Okay, so now we have this funny looking thing, and what we're going to do is to match the curved corners, we are going to sew along the edge and curve the corners up the top here. So now I've sewn the edges of my weird little sleeve thingy together. We're going to turn it inside out so that we have our nice seams on the outside. We still kind of have this little weird squid thing. And what we're going to do with it is we're going to put it over our back brace. Try and match the corners here. Okay. Now we have this nice padding, but we still have to get into here, and we don't want the padding to interfere with our pivot points, which are underneath. So you don't want to just drill a hole. What you want to do is, you can see how you have your top bolt and your base bolt, and you're going to cut a line from the center of your plate, but from that point down through the center to this bolt. You're going to cut a little slit. Make sure that you're, before you do that though, that everything's tight and positioned where you want it, because once you cut, that is where it will stay. Okay, so now we have this cut, and all you're going to do is slip it underneath these plates. Ta-da! Now you have your wing plates outside of your padding and your cover. Next what we're going to do, and you don't get to see my face for this part, but next what we're going to do is wrap the base and put on the straps and cut the slits for the straps. So there are several slits that I put up at the top, depending on which one, like how you want to wear it and how your harness works. You may leave this if you're doing a corset brace, but if not, I'm gonna, for this person, I'm gonna put, because she has some sleeves that go over and we want to hide as much as we can, we're going to cut the slits out of this side bar. Okay, so our slits are done up at the top, and we have our slits at the base, and we're going to leave these for now. Those going to last. And we're going to put in straps. So these straps, I don't have any more strapping to show you how to do this, but it's pretty simple. Basically, where's another one? Nope. Yes. Okay. So basically, you're going to get 1-inch nylon strapping, and you are going to like take it, and rather than doing like a straight loop like this, you are going to twist it just a half turn so that you get this loop. And that loop is what we're going to put through. And then you're going to have one strap that's just a regular strap, and then you're also going to have one of these strap adjusters sewn in to one of your sides. I like to make these shorter. You can measure them however you want. And these are the ones that I put over the shoulder. Again, you could do this however, like you could put this at the base and change it up. The thing you do want to keep in mind, and I really hope that this shows up, is this position is very important. So see how the strap is going to go in through here and then get hooked, like the way it like goes back down in, so that when this folds over it gets caught on that. Versus if you do it this way, it's flat on this side and it's just going to slip right through. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So here's the strap, and the way you feed it is you feed it through that back slit first and then forward through this slit. And then when you do this, it's tensioning up against, like the strapping is facing this way, and then that slit is facing the opposite direction. So they, like if I pull on this, it doesn't slip. If I do it the other way, I don't know if it's gonna show up on the video, so I'm just gonna show you, and hopefully you can figure it out if not. So like, let's do it the opposite way, where you have this flat bit in the front. So if we do it that way, the way the strap goes in, it's going with it's going the same direction as the did I do this wrong? I did it wrong. Dang it. Well, I mean, I did it right. I'm so conditioned. Okay, here we go. It's going the same direction as that slit, and so you can see, like, it just kind of falls in there, and then you pull on this and it doesn't do anything. You need to make sure that it's the direction of the strap is going the opposite of the direction of this plastic bit on the end. So, and I like to do it like this, though technically I think you can put the strap like this and it's not really going to affect how it sits, but this is more comfortable. So, and the way these go on is, again, making sure that this top is going to rest, like this is the top side and then this side goes a bit against your body. You're going to push the corner of your loop through your slit, like so, and then pull it through, and it should attach like that. And then, by the same token, this one doesn't matter as much which way like you put it, though, and I don't have this sewn. Usually I will sew the tab at the end, and if that, like, what direction that points is important to you, then you can do whatever you want, but I don't care. Come on, get in there. same thing. And just for grins, we're going to loop that through and test it, because I'd rather get this right now. So, nice and tight. And then what we're gonna do, oh, and then you'll put the belt through. I don't even know if I have a belt. I don't have a belt. So, pretend another loop is through, but same, second verse, same as the first. I tend to put the back loop on, and wrap it down at the base, just so that this back piece is covered. Remember, this is the side that's going to face out. The other side is facing towards your body, not as important, but this side you want to kind of try and cover up as best you can. And then what we're just going to do is, using the tension of this elastic, is we're going to go around and wrap this base. Now the reason we don't sew this a certain way, or like I don't create some complicated system to get this hole, I could cover the hole, but the reason I don't is the less of a plate there is, the more you can kind of trick the eye into doing what you want. So I like to leave that as thin as possible and as inconspicuous as possible. And then I like, but to basically create this void that we have here is in sewing. I mean, you can imagine, like, it wouldn't slip over if we sewed that, and so on and so forth. Like, there's complications with this design, but basically I just went around and wrapped it like so, and then you can tuck it or you can tack sew it if you're pretty confident with it. I like to leave it just wrapped, and then maybe, like, I'll tape it down in places for my own personal one, because if ever I want to go back in and change the straps, it's a lot easier to do if you just have it wrapped. If you tack sew, then you're going to end up, you know, having to undo all of those stitches to get back in there and change your strap configuration. And the nice thing about, like, these back braces, if you make the same wing, like the same size wing, the back brace will work again. And in fact, for my framework, I have a couple different feather configurations, so you can undo the feathers and just put on a new set. That way you don't have to buy multiple actuators, because those babies are expensive. And the wrap method is just simple and easy, and gets the job done pretty nicely. And then you have, like, your back brace is still pretty thin. I'll do this now. Your back brace is still pretty thin. It's only about ½ an inch thick before you get to your plate. Then it's about an inch for the whole thing. But the part that goes along your back is a ½ inch of padding, and it feels really nice. I will say it can get warm, which is odd, but you don't have a lot of ventilation, so that's the main problem. But this way you've got, I gotta back up. So yeah, this way you've got a back pad that is nice and cushioned, and you have your straps, and you're going to want a belt, which I don't have, sadly. Sorry about that. The last thing you're going to do is create access points for your bolts that are going to hold on your wings. And you can just feel around. That's how I found these slits too, is you just feel around and you can actually feel the hole. And you're just going to go ahead, and I make a, get in there. I make just a little cross in the fabric for the bolt to go through. You can reinforce this if you want in some way. You can fold it back and sew it if you want. I just leave it like that. This is going to be against your back. No one's going to see it. And if you end up, like, sewing a hole, it's like 1,000 times more work for pretty much no benefit. No one's going to see it. Yeah, so just create these little crosses. that way, if you get a bolt, I have one right here. If you get a bolt, you'll be able to slip it through and it'll go into your back brace. And you can still make your cross big enough that you can fit your socket wrench through, because that's how you're going to get your wings on. Hi guys, so I'm going to go over putting together the framework, but more importantly how to size your framework and make it. If you haven't seen my video on for metalworking and tips or something, that one is basically how I make the frame using a chop saw and a drill press. And past that, like and using those is not hard. Go to your local hackerspace and learn how to use them. You will very quickly pick it up. It is not difficult. But yeah, there's really nothing to making this other than you cut the lengths. Well, actually, first you drill the holes, or at least mark where the holes are, and cut the lengths, and then, you know, drill the holes where it's supposed to be. When you see measurements that I post, the measurements I'm posting are the distance between your pivot holes, not the ends of the bar. That's not important. What's important is where it's pivoting from. And a difference of ½ an inch will make a difference. I'm going to show you that right now. This is a test frame, and you can see that on a lot of these, there's multiple holes, you know, about ½ an inch apart, to let me move the various pieces around and the different bolt holes around, so that I can see how that changes the framework and how that changes what the frame does. Because the thing is if you take it by even ½ an inch, that can drastically change things, and it can lock out the frame, it can do all kinds of stuff. I'm going to show you all those things right now. And if you are not sure, like my proportions have the top of the wing pretty high right now. I want to make another frame that has them a little bit lower, but the main thing is, you know, like every time you do that, you can't just chop 3 inches off the top or whatever to like lower that without then affecting how the frame itself moves. So you then have to make a whole new test frame to see where everything pivots. So if you have new proportions in mind, you can do this out of wood. I actually have, I just had this laying around, but you can actually, I get my metal from Industrial Metal Supply. It's only in like 5 major cities, like Phoenix and LA and Portland, I don't know. But trust me, there's a metal supply place in your area. Just, you know, type in metal supply, my city, and one will come up. You can get flat aluminum, kind of 1-inch bars to do this testing with, to see where you want things. It won't bind the way this does, so, but it's cheaper. I don't know, like I would do this if you have the money to, if you have $8 to spare, I would do it this way, just so that you know where it's going to bind, because the square frames will hit each other and stop each other from moving, which is a good thing in some cases. Okay, so what I have here is just a little wooden jig to simulate the back brace, and it has, I need 6, 6.5, and 7 inches holes as kind of my base that I'm assuming we're at. You can put more or less holes, that's totally up to you. And this is just to show you some of the testing. I'm not going to go through every little change that I tested. What is this? This is the top piece. What I am going to do is just kind of give you a taste of how changing the frame will change how things pivot. And I'm just tightening, hand tightening these down just a little bit. And here, I also don't have the washers in between each layer. That comes later.
This is just to get you thinking about it. I'm doing this wrong. This one goes here. Okay. Boy, that did not want to go in. Okay, so the way I attach frames, you can do it really any way you want, but I tend to progress like this layer is on the bottom, this layer is in the middle, this layer goes on top of this, so like everything kind of moves forward. This helps with mounting the actuator on the back. Later, if you don't have actuators, you can do whatever you want in this configuration. And you can change it however. It's not a big deal. But if you're attaching actuators, progress forward and then make sure you mirror on the other side. Don't make two right wings. You need to do the same thing on the other side mirrored. But anyway, that aside, so what I've done is I put, this one is at its longest, this spacing is in the middle of the kind of test holes that I did. These are in the middle, everything's in the middle if there are multiples, except for these guys. These are at their longest. And as you can see, when I close this, you get this weird angle. You kind of never want it, I mean, it can pivot down farther, but you don't really want it to go too much past parallel, because then what happens is you might get a lockout at the base. And this is because this is going past center here, like center frame. And this one is not too bad, but you can get it to the point where your wing won't open after it closes all the way. The same thing goes for the top, but I don't know. Yeah, so we're gonna have to shorten this one up, or shorten this one up for you to see it lock out at the top. But I don't know if I can fit this in frame. Okay, let's do that. So if you think of this as your parallel back brace, you can see it kind of gets this little bit of an upward angle, which is what we want. So this is good, but that lockout situation isn't so great. And then you'll notice that when they're closed all the way, this is pointed out at like a 45-degree angle, which means you're not going to fit through anything, and you're going to whack a ton of people. So upward angle's good, but downward angle's bad, lockout situation bad. So let's try moving this one and see what happens. If I can get it out. Why do you jam? Let's just put it in the middle. Okay. So what does that change? This angle's still pretty high, probably even higher. Yeah, higher. Now we have even more of a lockout situation, and this angle up top is better. Is not much better. So that's not going to do what we want it to do. Let's try, I don't know, moving this one up. Half an inch. Alright, so now this is where that lockout situation at the base comes. You don't want this to happen. He's baked. So we don't like that. Let's try the other direction. But, well, let's see. What happens when we close it? Well, that closing situation looks a little better on this, but we still have this at the bottom. Let's see what happens when we do the other way.
So now it's like coming in towards your face. We don't like that. Let's go back to the middle. Middle, we kind of had a problem either way we went there. So let's do that. But looks like if we move it down, this pivot point down, the upward angle, oh, but I have this problem then. I gotta move this back. Whoop. Yeah, so that causes that upward angle that we don't like. Let's try moving this guy back a little. So now what do we got? Still got that lockout at the bottom. Really not much improvement or change. Try moving it down one. See if we notice a problem there. Yeah, so that's kind of part of where we're getting this angle, right? So the middle of the base, no. Let's try lengthening this piece. See what happens there. And we'll put this at this base piece. And now that's even worse. And upward angle, see how this, you want this to have a slight upward angle as well, but now it's like that, which is weird. We don't like that. So let's try going the other direction. See how many variables there are? Like all of these are no different, like, or no. Okay, so now this piece is as short as it can be based on the holes I put. And this distance up here is as short as it can get. Ow, that was my fingers. So now we have them pointing almost straight down. We have a little bit of a weird angle here visually. It's not a mechanical problem, but visually we kind of have an odd angle, like they're pointing away from us. But that's not too big a deal. How about when we open it? So when we open it, it's almost straight to the side, maybe a little upward angle, but so far that's not too bad, right? That's the best we've had so far. Let's see if we change this up here. Now, because I have it on all the shortest lengths, I don't even think I can get to that top piece. Let's try moving down one. I'm not even gonna bolt it. But yeah, see, that opens it up again. So, I don't like that. So I'm gonna try this. Or I'm gonna leave that in the middle. Let's try moving this distance. Just make it the widest we can make it. Okay, so that's the widest we can make it. Don't see much improvement either way, though this does seem to close down a little bit more. And our angle, slightly upward angle is pretty good. What happens if we put it down at the bottom piece? Okay. So we're getting that lockout situation at the base, but it's not like really bad. It doesn't seem to actually be locking it. Like you'll feel it a little bit, it'll have like this little bit of a pop to it. So that's not too bad. Pretty good angles all around actually. How about when it goes up? Oh, so now we have that. And remember, we don't want to have that angle happen. So, looks like so far, our best bet is either, was it center or up? I can't even remember. Really good. So that one's almost straight out to the side. You might want a little more upward angle. A way to get, and it's, I don't know, the downward angle, we may want to bring this kind of more this way. And one of the ways to do that is to shorten this. Let's see if we shorten this by 1. Eep. Then we'll try moving the back brace ends. If we shorten that by 1, That gets us a better straight angle. We do have like an angle to the side a little bit, but that's for the most part gonna happen. Good upward angle, no binding. So this looks like pretty good. This goes out a little farther than I would like. And there's a little more playing to figure out how to fix that, but that's basically how I figured out my frame. Is I started out with the basics and moved on. Let's try. What happens if this is at 6 inches? Let's see if I put it at, well, I don't know, it might be 7, but, well, we have it in the middle, right? So, change that. What does that do? Closes it out sooner, 90 degree, and pretty good upward angle, just slight. So that makes it kind of stick out farther from here. Let's try the middle. I don't know if that's going to do anything, honestly. Kind of get it somewhere in the middle. So, yeah, so that looks pretty good, right? That's 6.5 inches, I think. So basically, that's how I figure out my framework. What you're gonna then do is take, once you figure it out, I mean, I would make a whole new, because the more holes you have, the weaker the aluminum gets. Not by a lot, honestly, especially if you have a smaller wing. If you get larger, I get paranoid and I over-engineer, so I have a tendency to just remake a new thing, and I think that the bar is like $8. So just go get a new one and recut it, and take your measurements, do the new measurements with the proportions that you like, and then you're gonna drill all your holes for your feathers and stuff, and I'll show you a frame that's finished here in just a second. But what you're gonna do is you're gonna put washer, or, you know, like bolt, washer, and then a washer in between these two pieces, and then a washer on the other side, and then your nut. So there should be 3 washers per joint, and a bolt and a nut. And I use the nylon lock nuts. The parts list is up on the webpage, so if you need that, that's there. It's also up on, if you are at the $10 tier, that will be up in the archives. So, and that'll probably be easier to find than because it's pretty far back. I'll try and repost the parts list here in a little bit if I can find it. Let's see. Yeah, let me show you a final frame. So this is a wing ready for sleeving, and you can see there's washers on each piece. I can't show you the one in the middle, but it's there, I promise. And then on the other side, what you're gonna do when tightening these is you're going to pretty much tighten it, like don't tighten it until it's super tight, like you're gonna feel a little bit of resistance, and then you're gonna wanna go back like a quarter turn. And when you're opening and closing them, they should move freely, but not be like jangly. They shouldn't be loose, but if you put them too tight, they also won't open. If you're making these, you can make these so that they're just posable. Like they don't have any kind of automation, there's no pulleys, there's no puppetry, all it is that you tighten the bolts just enough that it'll hold the weight when you open them, so like you or your friends can open them for pictures, and that'll save you a lot of time and money if you want to just do that, and that's totally fine. They look great, and in that case you will tighten it down all the way, and you're not going to like try and torque it as tight as possible still, because you do want your friend to be able to open it, and you will be amazed how little frictional force it takes to keep them open and to keep your friend from opening them and closing them for you. So you don't want to batten them down too tight. But the main thing is, like, this one's too loose. Like, I haven't gone through and double checked these, but you can see there's a little bit of space there, and I don't like it. So you've got to go through and make sure that like they open and close freely, but that you don't have any loose nuts or bolts. And that's pretty much how to put together the frame. I don't know if that covers everything you wanted to know about with the frame. Please ask me questions, and I will edit this video over the course of the week with any questions and to answer any questions that you guys might have. Please feel free to ask everything because I don't know what questions you guys really have. The downside of being, well, I'm not a real engineer, but, or a classically trained engineer, but I have an engineer's mind, and that means that I instinctively kind of understand how things are put together. So when I saw the framework of this, I just made it. Like, I didn't need a tutorial, I just did it. And I realized that that's not normal. I'm kind of a weirdo. But that also means that I don't know what questions you guys have about it. A lot of people wanted this video, and me, I'm like, well, you just make it. And you don't, obviously. Just make it. There are steps. And I just intuitively do those steps. So please, if I miss something and you say, hey, but what about this? Please message me or leave a comment, and I will edit this video to answer all of your questions this week. Love you guys. Bye.